before we talk about the technical concept of conceptual and theoretical framework, let me give you an example, a realistic example na makaka-relate kayo. Let us say, for example, gusto mo magluto ng adobong manok. Ngayon, ang problema is that hindi mo alam kung paano siya lulutuin. So, of course, meron ka dapat na recipe as your basis on how you're going to cook your adobong manok. So, recipe ni mami mo. Yung recipe ni mami mo, ngayon, yun yung magiging basis mo, yun yung magiging guide mo in cooking your adobong manok. So, ang adobong manok mo dito is your research problem. And yung theoretical framework is the recipe of your mommy on how to cook adobong manok. Again, your research problem is cooking adobong manok. And your theoretical framework is the recipe of your mother kung paano magluto ng adobong manok. Kasi yung theoretical framework mo or yung recipe ni mami mo, ito yung magiging guide mo, magiging basis mo para magawa mo yung adobong manok. So this is an existing literature. Nandyan na siya. Nandyan na, bago ka pa man magluto ng adobong manok, nandyan na yung recipe ni mami mo. So that recipe will help you in cooking your adobong manok. So in the theoretical framework naman, it is an existing literature that will help you explain, define the concepts, the theories na kasama sa study mo. Okay? I hope na nakita niyo yung relationship ng theoretical framework and the adobong manok. And another naman example is the conceptual framework. Ngayon, sa recipe ni mami mo, gusto mo siyang bigyan ng twist. Let us say, for example, walang pineapple sa recipe ni mami mo. So, your pineapple is the specific concept or idea in your own cooking of adobong manok. So, you are going to use that one to combine that new idea, adding the pineapple in the existing literature, which is the recipe of your mother. So, to spice things up, dadagdagan mo ng pineapple. So, yung pineapple is a conceptual framework in your adobong manok. Okay? Yung dinagdag mo is an example of a conceptual framework. So, bibigyan natin ng halimbawa sa mismong study or sa mismong research. A theoretical framework, example yung title, the research title is the senior high school students' social media use and attention span. So, pag theoretical framework yung pag-uusapan, maghahanap ka ng theory which talks about attention span and social media usage. So, doon yung theoretical framework. You're going to base sa mga existing theories which talks about attention span. Ngayon naman, in the conceptual framework, gusto mong malaman kung meron kayong kaibahan yung attention span ng mga student kapag sila ay babae or kapag sila ay lalaki. So, di ba kanina naghanap ka ng theory tungkol sa attention span? Ngayon naman, sa conceptual framework mo, meron kang dinagdag na concept or variables and constructs, which is yung sets ng mga participants in which gusto mong malaman kung meron bang kaibahan sa attention span ng mga babae kaysa sa lalaki. Kasi di ba minsan meron talagang significant difference yung mga behavior ng babae comparing sa mga lalaki. Para bang mas malikot talaga yung mga lalaki comparing sa mga babae. So, yun yung conceptual framework. Mas specific siya, mas narrow, kasi it is contextualized in your study. Pero yung theoretical framework, it is broad. Pwede natin siyang ma-apply sa iba't ibang study. So, kahit anong study, kahit anong research na which talks about attention span, pwede mong gamitin yung certain theory na yun. Okay? I hope that you understand that example or illustration. This time, let us talk about the technical aspect of our conceptual framework and theoretical framework. This topic is still under Chapter 1 of your study in the introduction, in which in the previous discussion we have discussed on the background of the study, the statement of the problem or research questions, and scope and delimitation. And as I've mentioned, this time we will be talking about conceptual or theoretical framework. What is a conceptual framework? It is a diagrammatic presentation of the study, or also called as the research paradigm. So a conceptual framework is a graphical presentation of your concepts or ideas on the basic structure or components of your research. So dito, as mentioned, diagrammatic or graphical presentation in which in the conceptual framework, yung mga concepts, variables, or ideas na kasama sa study mo, isusulat mo siya in a visual presentation using a graphical presentation of showing the relationships of these concepts and variables. So as you can see here, it presents the relationship of the variables or concepts. Later on, I will be showing you an example para mas maintindihan nyo kung paano ba napapakita sa conceptual framework yung relationship ng variables at concepts. So dito naman sa conceptual framework, it is a graph or non-prose material, specifically a schematic diagram that shows a well-ordered elements of the research, giving a carefully constructed arrangement of the components of your study. Conceptual framework is a broad outline or plan to give a shape to your research. That is according to Shields and Rangarjan 2013. Okay, and then it is a narrow and uses specific concepts identified from the study itself. So pag sinasabi nating narrow, mas specified, at syempre it is contextualized on the concepts that you used or you will be using in your study. Ito, may example tayo dito sa conceptual framework para mas maintindihan ninyo kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng conceptual framework sa study. Right, so the research title is The Senior High School Student Social Media Usage and Their Attention Span in Class. If you remembered, this is the same example that I used in the previous discussion. Figure 1 below, so this square or rectangle that you see here in the presentation, this is the figure 1, illustrates the conceptual framework of the research. The paradigm presents the variables that will be considered in the research. So as you can see here, meron ditong senior high school student social media usage, and there are 3 sub-variables. The first is forms of social media. Second is frequency of social media use, and then third is the mode of social media use. So ito, makikita ito sa statement of the problem in the formulating your research questions. Ito yung kukunin ninyong mga data from your participants. So you will get kung ano ba yung mga ginagamit nila social media, kung gaano ba sila ka-frequent or ilang oras silang gumagamit ng certain social media na yun. And then, may arrow yan sa gitna to see the relationship of these variables to senior high school students' attention span in class. Meron kayang relationship, yung use ng social media usage ng senior high school students sa attention span nila. And then you will also include the explanation of your diagram or your graphical representation. Dito sinasabi, Figure 1, the conceptual framework of the study. The level of senior high school students' social media usage will be described in the research in terms of 3 sub-variables. So as I've mentioned, so these are the 3 sub-variables under dito sa first box that we have. A, forms of social media, B, frequency of social media use, and C, mode of social media use. In the research, this variable is seen to possess a hypothesized relationship with senior high school students' attention span in class. This hypothesized relationship is represented by the two-headed arrow connecting both variables. As you can see here, this is now the example of a conceptual framework. So you are just going to show in a graphical presentation or in a diagram the relationship of the concepts, or simply saying the variables under study. So you should again identify and understand what are the variables under study. So your 2 major variables here are, first is the social media usage of the participants and the attention span of the participants. And under this, meron kang sub-variables. The first sub-variable, A, forms of social media, B, frequency of social media use, and then C, mode of social media use. So itong graphical presentation na to, hindi naman ibig sabihin na, as you can see, meron dalawang box, tapos meron dalawang two-headed arrow. Pwede din you are going to represent or to write it in another way. Basta you can show the relationship of the variables under study. Alright? So all your plans, concepts, or ideas about the many aspects of your research are shown and clarified graphically and verbally in the conceptual framework. Diba? Meron kang graphical presentation, itong mga box and arrow, and you also have the verbal explanation, itong dito na sa baba. However, looking so broad or numerous, all components of the study, concrete and abstract, are not extensively and thoroughly explained by the conceptual framework. Diba? Parang in-state lang, binigay lang kung ano yung mga variables at ano yung relationship, pinakita lang. But, wala talagang extensive explanation, walang in-depth explanation, detailed explanation kung ano yung mga variables na ito. Diyan na papasok yung theoretical framework. So, there is the other part of your research paper called theoretical framework that gives and explains the theories, principles, generalizations, and research findings which have some connection to your study. Alright, so based on the variables here in your conceptual framework, para mas extensive yung explanation, you are going to include a theoretical framework for that one. Now, what is a theoretical framework? So, yun na yung conceptual framework. Now, let us talk about theoretical framework. This is a general frame of reference that is used for observation, defining concepts, developing research designs, and interpreting and generalizing findings. Kanina, di ba, sa conceptual framework, it is more specific and it is narrow. Pero pagdating sa theoretical framework, it is a general frame of reference. So, let us say, for example, your study is about the behavior of the student. So, you're going to look for a theory which talks about the behavior. Ito na yung sinasabi ko, broader in scope and derived from theories that are already used in the field. Another example is when it is about mental health. So, you are going to look for a theory which talks about mental health. Another one is it is already existing prior to the conduct of the study. So, these are the theories that you will be looking. Yung hahanapin mo mga theory ay mga, of course, existing literature. Nandyan na siya. Bago mo pa kinandak yung study mo, nandyan na siya. Kaya nga, di ba, pinapahanap ko kayo ng related studies or related literature doon sa napili ninyong research topic. So, dito din magbe-base yung theoretical framework mo. So, based on the variables under study, you're going to look for a theory since this will support your study. This will explain the concepts, the ideas of the theories, and the variables under study. Alright? And then, so, yun yung kaibahan ng conceptual tsaka theoretical framework. Ngayon naman, ano ba yung pagkakatulad ng dalawa? First is, they both provide comprehensive understanding of a phenomenon. Though, kanina sinabi ko na mas detailed, mas extensive yung explanation ng theoretical framework. But of course, silang dalawa nagbibigay ng comprehensive understanding doon sa event or sa research problem na napili ninyo. Second is, it provides a theory that underpins your study. Third is, it justifies the methods you will use and assumptions you will make in your study. So, dito sa theoretical and conceptual framework, since nakikita natin yung relationship ng mga variables, tapos sa theoretical framework naman na i-explain kung ano yung mga theory underpinning those theories, dito ma-justify natin kung bakit ganitong method yung pipiliin ninyo in your study and the assumptions that you will be making in your study. Bakit meron tayong assumption? Kasi di ba nga, meron tayong hypothesis or our educated guess. Number 4 is, it helps refine your objectives, develop relevant research questions, choose appropriate methods, and identify possible threats to validity. This one is related with the item number 3. So, since yun nga, mapapakita yung mga relationship tsaka mga theory, makakatulong ito when refining your objective in your study, developing your research questions. Although tapos na kayong gumawa ng research question ninyo, assuming that you are done, pwede mo pa siyang ma-develop, ma-revise yung research questions ninyo since your research paper is an ongoing process. And lastly, it guides you in exploring and interpreting your data to arrive at your desired results.